here we are. I'm Tom Osborne, and this is Whatever Comes Next, the podcast where I explore the world of underground and independent music making. And on today's episode, I am talking with Clément Duboscq of micro agency Vous Connaissez PR, who represent various different underground bands in France and beyond. And in fact, my relationship with Clément goes all the way back to 3 or 4 years ago, working on Biolant, which was an offshoot project of Non Serviam, my favorite anonymous Parisian anarchists. And since then, we've collaborated on reviews and interviews for Blessed Altazine, for Ghost Cult Magazine, for Whatever Comes Next, all the way back to episode 5 when I interviewed Something Animal. That was through Clément. And most recently with Two Eyes, only a couple of episodes ago. But this was the first time that we actually spoke in real time. This was an opportunity for me to get a lot of valuable insights, get into a lot of conversations about the way that the music business works from a PR point of view, and ask a lot of questions that had been bubbling away for me. So this was very cool for me. I think it's a very interesting, insightful discussion if you want to get a bit of a peek behind the curtain of this world of music PR that isn't really generally available to the public. And and then we talk about Clem's history as well, the history of the agency and various other ways that he's been involved in the music world too. There is indeed a longer version of this interview that where we go into various more discussions of the music business, which is on Patreon, which you can go to at www.patreon.com/whatever comes next. There are other longer episodes, basically from the 100th episode onward, that you can check out there. You can also get some other interesting features if you would like to check that out. You can go check out my music at tomosmansounds.com. You can follow me on all social media at tomosmansounds. I will put all relevant links for Clem and Vous Connaissez in the description. I am also going to play a song. What song is it that I am going to play? Well, I am going to play the first track from Life Is, which is the debut album by post-hardcore band Loons, which Clément is representing. That's coming out on November the 28th. So you're going to get a little teaser of that at the end of this interview, a little clip coming up in just a moment. And I think that's it. So without further ado, Clément of Vous Connaissez PR, take it away. Because it's the first time that we've ever actually spoken face to face, well, like in real time, I need you to clarify for me, how should I pronounce your name properly?
It's pronounced Clément.
Clément, okay.
But if you want to simplify it, everyone calls me Clem, basically.
Oh, okay.
So you can call me just Clément or Clem, both works.
So this is your first PR job you ever had, is that right?
That's absolutely true. Yeah. Actually, I did many things before in music before doing some PR for 5 years. I'm actually still also on the other side of the fence. I'm still a music journalist too. I write for New Noise in France.
I know, I was going to say, it's funny because you write for New Noise and I write for New Noise, but I write for the American one.
Yeah, that's it. And many people do the confusion. Sometimes when we release that magazine, some artists, they tag the other New Noise actually. So sometimes I have to tell them, no, it's the other one with some underscores on it. But yeah, so I've been working for New Noise writing for them since 2017, and it's basically the job I've always wanted to do. I started to write on music and do some interviews and write some music reports since I was 13. So it's gonna be 20 years next year. So it's been in me for a very, very long time. I did some new noise while I ended my studies, and the day job I had besides from that was I was doing like the traffic information, but for trains in a radio that was broadcasted on the train station. So that was funny. That was my first job after I was done with my studies. And just fast forward, I did some radio curation for FIP. That is a radio in France that is 100% music, and there's no ads or anything, and it's 24-hour, 7 days a week, music and music and music. And so I've been doing replacements for them from late 2018 to early 2020. And there were some possibilities that they would hire me full time for this, but then COVID happened in 2020. So I basically was in a way worse professional situation than I was before. And so I did a few things during lockdowns and stuff, always continuing to writing for New Noise, but also doing some interviews on Instagram. Like during the first lockdown, I was doing some interviews, like 5 interviews a week, every week at around 7 p.m. or 20 p.m. just to discover some music to people in those times where it was really difficult. And I'm sure you remember the first lockdown, how it was, and how it was you just couldn't go outside, and you just have to find something to stuck to forget all doubt. So I was trying to do that. So this is basically, I'm gonna go to the point, but there's a lot of context, so I'm really sorry about that. But yeah, 2020 was really an important year for me. And how did I came to PR? I came to PR first with music journalism and writing some bios for bands. And this is something I'm, as you already know, it's something I always do with my PR activity. And one of these bands that asked me for a bio was Computer Skill People, that we talked about very recently, because I sent you the new album that is coming out this fall in October, which happened to be some very close friends of mine. I've been also a member of the band from 2015 to 2016, way long before I was basically still doing my studies at that moment, and it was way long before doing some PR. And then, like in the fall of 2020, I just visited the people from the band. It was just a normal meeting, like, yeah, just come eat something at the house. And there was absolutely nothing that was pre-announced that, yeah, we have something to talk to you. No, nothing at all. So when I came, they just said to me, we have an EP that we'd like to release in the coming months. So that was in around August or September 2020. So they asked me, we have that EP that is coming, we have a little budget for it. Do you want to do PR for this? And I basically really didn't think that much, and I just said yes, absolutely, immediately. And what was really funny is that in the days that followed that meeting, there was another band called Storm Orchestra, for which I had written a bio that said to me exactly the same thing, that we have an EP that we'd like to release in the coming months. Do you know someone who'd be able to do some PR for it? And I was like, I'm actually starting to do it, so if you want, we can try. So I basically already had 2 bands to work with in the first months where I started, and then another artist called Fagja that was doing some industrial electronics. So what was really funny is that right on the very small 3 bands roster that I had was already really eclectic, because I had 2 hard-hitting rock bands on one side and 1 electronic industrial trip-hop artist on another side. So that's basically how it started. And I was still in a very blurry professional period for me, because I thought maybe it was only be a parenthesis, and maybe FIP would cut me black or anything. Maybe I would have some other options. But I kind of enjoyed it, and I was like, okay, maybe I can make a living out of it. And so I officially launched Vous Connaissez in very early 2021, and just officially said, I can take care of your releases and of your band, so let's just talk about it. And the rest is history.
And so at that time, like let's say before you'd even given it a name, when you first had those offers to do PR, I guess that because you're already doing the writing for New Noise, you had experience on the journalistic side. You had kind of a
Uh-huh.
bit of first-hand
Absolutely.
experience of what PRs are and what they do.
Yes. That's totally right. I basically learned to do my job like observing my colleagues, basically, and I've been really lucky enough to talk with some very benevolent people that gave me some great advice, and that also helped me to get a bit of context to get started. Even though now it's just a part of my job to find some new media and find some contacts to get in touch with. But yeah, I really observed how my colleagues they write their press releases, how they do the emails that they send. Even though I have a kind of DIY approach, I'm like not using a platform that could ease the sendings of all the emails I have. But yeah, it's been. Yeah, I've been to it also thanks to a part of my knowledge of the music media industry, basically.
So to give people an idea who aren't familiar with this side of the music world, what does being a PR actually involve? And if there is such a thing, what's a typical day like for you?
I think that maybe it would be a typical week, actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, to answer the first part of your question, my job from a very straightforward point of view is to make sure that when an album gets released, where an EP gets released, or when a music video or single gets released, some media talk about it. So that could be when people like you do some interviews, or when you have some magazines that write some reviews or that publish also interviews, whether it be paper press or webzines and everything, and also new medias like some Instagram accounts that do some playlists and etc. My job is to try to reach all those assets, all those media, and make sure that some of them talk about the bands that I work with. So I think what is really the most tedious is to have your whole the whole list of the medias that you have, and to identify what kind of music they talk about, because I work with some rock and metal artists, but also with some pop, folk, and more electronic artists. So I have to take that time to establish the precise list of the best the media that would be the most interested by those bands and artists. And this is more for like the new medias that I really want to get something with them, that maybe haven't replied to my previous emails. Because on another side, I now that it's been 5 years since I'm working, I have some medias that are kind of part of the family now, that they trust me for some releases, and basically every time I have a release, they write a review about it or anything. So that's really cool. That's really cool. And but I'm always keen to try to find some new media. I just can't tell myself I'm gonna just stick to the 20, 30 media that always reply and do something with my medias. No, no, no. When I work with an artist, I send like it can go, and whether it be with the paper magazine or webzines and radios, the list could go to between 600 and 700 contacts. So it's a huge work to do. And to answer the second part of your question, what would be a typical week for me? So let's take an example. For example, like computer skill people that I sent you the album. That's basically a release that is between rock and metal. So I can get in touch with some more open-minded media, but also reach the some media that are more into metal. So this is basically one of the projects I get in touch with the most media, and on the on the Monday I send it to all the French media, from paper press to webzines, and I also send it to the most important international media, I think, with paper press, etc. And on the Tuesday, I send it to all the international media. So that's basically why when you receive a new project from me, you receive it on the Tuesdays. I don't know if you have noticed this.
I've never noticed that before, but yeah, now that you mention it, I'm just looking at one of the. I'm like, oh yeah, it is on a Tuesday.
So that's how it works. And then on Wednesdays and Thursdays, I'm sending some singles, but it's basically from another artist, because I try to not focus on one artist a week and just talk about one artist to every media I get in touch with. So basically, if computer skill people, that is going to be released on October 17, when I sent it to the media for reviews, etc., the singles that I've been working on must have been, uh, I think that was Of Mountains and Seas, which is an amazing ambient project that I really love, with a bit of post-rock in it. That had released a single, and another project that you already have an appointment with for interview. It's Two Eyes, and they released a single on the same week as I sent the Computer Skill people, for example. And then that was not the case that week, because I didn't have some album releases, but on Fridays it's album releases. So basically what I do is that I send a release day newsletter to all the contacts that could be interested by this one, and I integrate some strong quotes to push the envelope a bit, and just show that there is interest on this one. So that's basically it on Fridays. And what I also happen to do on Thursdays, I'm sending one last reminder for the release that is gonna get released the week after. So there's a lot to do. There's always a lot to do.
One of the things that I have wondered, and I've wondered this about PR in general, when you make an agreement with a band or an artist and you're going to represent them, what I wonder about is like, how does that work in terms of like what they expect and like what gets paid for? Because I've sort of imagined, and you can tell me whether I'm accurate in this or this is not the way it works.
Yes,
I kind of
please.
thought that, well, it probably makes sense that when an artist comes to a PR, the PR will say, okay, I've got the capacity to like present you to a whole bunch of different people, and there's maybe going to be like different payments depending on how many different reviews or how many different interviews get done. Does it kind of work like that?
That's basically it. I mean, I sure have some bands that have some big expectations, and sometimes with some media that are basically unreachable because they don't really care about that kind of music, but that's in their goals, and I just have to explain them. So yeah, this is absolutely cool to have some ambition and stuff, but the reality is a bit different from what you expect. And usually they understand, you know. But it's not much bands that I've been working with were in that mindset. Actually, I've been really lucky enough to have some bands very much understandable and just trusting from day one. They want to know what media I can send it, and to answer just that question to them, I just tell them, you have access to the list, and you just know when I get in touch with them, when they reply. And if you don't hear from me about specific media about the album, this is because they just haven't replied yet. And so yeah, there are expectations.
So you, if I understand this right, you show them, you give them access so they can see exactly what you're doing.
Absolutely. 100%.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, because when I started that job, I heard so many stories of bands that just trusted the wrong people, and with some PR that were always very or shady about what they were doing, never telling the artist what was gonna happen, never giving them some clear results and stuff like that, and asking for some ridiculous amount of money in a bad way. So hearing stories like this, I've always made a point about having 100% transparency with my artist and never leave them in the blur. Never ever. So from day one, I've always done that. Did the whole list of media I get in touch with in the Google Sheet and give them access. Give them access to it so they know that that job is done. Actually,
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense to do it that way, to give that clarity to the artist. Now, I'm wondering, do you have labels that you have relationships directly where it's actually through them that you'll then represent the artist, or it always starts with the artists?
so that's it could start with some artists and it could also start with some labels. It's a bit of both, but I've been really fortunate to work for 2.5 years with Pelagic Records, and they were make me working on their releases for France. And that's actually when I started working with Pelagic, doors started to open even more for me. So this is when other bands came to me to work together, and they were saying, "Yeah, we saw what you did with Pelagic. Yeah, that's amazing, man. Would be interesting, etc." So lots of bands reached me for this, and also with the Pelagic label, with stuff like that, it also opened some doors from some media. And there's some media I have built loyalty with some media thanks to Pelagic Records. So they were interested in the releases that I was working with for Pelagic, and then they got interested on some non-Pelagic releases. So that was just perfect, actually.
Yeah. It's interesting. Like, I feel like in maybe particularly at this kind of like underground DIY level that we're both sort of at, that
Sure.
like making contacts and connections and communities is like such an important part, whether you're as a
Absolutely,
journalist
yeah.
or as an artist or as a label owner or whoever it is. It's like it's all in that kind of that
It's
world.
networking. It's definitely some networking. Sometimes, I have to post on my socials that, yeah, I'm available on that period so we can work together. But more and more, and for some artists, it was some bands that I was just a huge fan of that I wanted to work with. This is what I did with Fragile, for example, when we worked together for that debut EP that was released 2 years ago, yeah. And this is what I did with King Yosef, that you know well as well, because I'm doing the French PR for King Yosef. And how did it start? I just sent him a DM on Instagram. I was like, dude, I really want to work with you for France. Do you want to work with me for your album in France? And you just say, sure, yeah, let's do it. Simple as this. Simple as this.
And so in general, like let's just say, let's see, what example can I take for something that we've collaborated on? Let's take Dirty Shades, for example.
Yes. Uh-huh.
So with them, were you the only PR for them?
Only PR. Yeah.
Okay,
I was
so that
doing
was
France and international.
fine. So like in that context, for a band like that, obviously France is going to be like the starting point.
Of course. Of course. Absolutely.
How many different places in theory could you be pitching the band to outside of France?
Uh, First of all, the basically when I look at my whole list, I just realized that I have way more media titles and contacts on an international scale than on a French scale. First off, so this is sending projects to international media is always the part that takes me the most time. But for Dirty Shades, of course, and we worked together on two projects on a live session EP and on the album that you already know very well. Of course, France was the key territory and the highest priority for it. And they also signed with the booker, and they were doing more and more shows. So that there was a momentum and something to, how can I say that? The fact that they had a booker at the moment the album got released, and the fact that they were doing some shows way more important for them. It was important to try to get as much French reviews as possible, and basically, as a French PR, the more results I have are always in France, because for some international media, it's basically normal that they prioritize some promos that they get from people from their country, from their area. So it's a bit more difficult, but I'm happy that I got to sometimes here and then to have some results in English speaking media, just like yours, whether it be Ghost Girl or whatever comes next. And sometimes I've also been able to get some Metal Hammer in UK for some bands like Mattress. You remember Mattress? They've
Yeah,
been
love
reviewed
them.
in Metal Hammer, for example, or Azimuth even. So yeah, it's you never know. It's so random, the results that you could have. Another example of how random it could be, Zero Pache, for example, that you did an interview with. We had like maybe a holy trinity of paper press magazine for that album, which has been absolutely unexpected. We had a Rock and Folk, that is one of the oldest music paper magazine in France. We had Libération, that is one of the most important daily newspaper in France. So that's amazing. And we also had Tsagi, that talks about electro and everything, but they always sometimes talk about rock, and they were like, yeah, sure, we're going to talk about it. So that was absolutely mind-blowing to have some results like this. And it's definitely not every project I work with that get some results like this.
Yeah.
Even though I have cool results, basically the bands are really happy with what I get. But to have those media in a whole recap of all this, that's pretty cool. That's
Yeah.
really pretty cool.
And like you said as well, like if 50% of what happens is down to chance, it's like you can get an array of different artists and releases and think these are all amazing. They all deserve to have equal representation, but just sometimes
That's
for whatever
absolutely
reason,
it.
certain things get picked up and certain other things don't get picked up.
Yes, absolutely. That's it.
And I also know from my experience on the side of assigning reviews for Ghost Cult that it's like when you've got like 100 different things one week and you're like, I've only got 10 writers, what can I get represented? Sometimes there are
Sure,
things that you
of
really
course.
like and you just don't get the
Of course.
opportunity to get
But
someone on them.
But you know, there's a French reviewer that writes at Rock Hard, and is also a YouTuber. He's called the Doom Dad, and he's doing an amazing work. He did a whole video with some advices to indie bands, and there was a whole part of it about PRs. And I will thank him forever for what he said in this. But he just said, if there's only one media that replies and writes something about your album, it's already a victory. It's a selection, and it's important to have it, even though if it's only one. It's always better than nothing. Because, as you mentioned, there are so many albums and EPs that get released in 1 week. And we observed that since COVID, I think it just exploded, basically. Fortunately, I basically never have only one result for a release. Maybe I think it happened to me once in the first year where I've been working, and it didn't happen since then. So crossing my fingers for it to keep on being like that.
Yeah. Obviously, over the years, the position that record labels have has changed, and obviously the rise of streaming services
Hmm.
has had a huge impact on labels and artists as well. Do you
Uh-huh.
think, though, that for artists, in terms of like the ability or not to make a living and the generally the need to have other jobs, do you think that's pretty much stayed the same, or do you think it's become either easier or more difficult?
I think it's something between nothing has changed and it's getting more difficult because I'm sure it's not new to you that streaming services, especially Spotify, they pay musicians so poorly um, that how can you imagine to make a living if your thousand streams gets you barely like 20 or 30 euros, something like this. It's just it's unimaginable, I think.
Yeah. And I'm also wondering, like, let's say when a band comes to you, and obviously there's like a lot of that conversation is going to be about what you can do for them. But I wonder from your point of view, in terms of like what you think the bands can do to
Mhm.
like maximize getting people aware of what they're doing, do you tend to have like an opinion and something you'll present to them about like how valuable using social media is and like whether the music should be on Spotify and like
Mhm.
various different things that they should or they shouldn't do?
Of course, yeah. I feel very free in giving my opinion on it, and they're asking for this. I mean, part of my job is to accompany them if they have a question about what to post on their socials, and if they're not really used to communicate on socials, I also can do some basically ghostwriting their post because I've been a social media manager at some point, so I know how to do it, and I share their skills with my skills with them. So that's cool. And yeah, one very frequent case is when there is a single being released and there's no music videos. The advice I always give is to have a visualizer on YouTube just so it can get shared a bit universally because not everyone uses Spotify, not everyone uses Apple Music. Sure, you could have Bandcamp too, but not every bands are on Bandcamp. If you have it on YouTube, if you have like a visualizer, it can be something very simple like the album art and the music behind, or maybe a lyrics video or something like this. It's just a universal way to share your music and to have it shared in the new sections of the media I'm gonna get in touch with and share the new song with. So this is an advice that I frequently give.
And so I'm curious that you said that you were a social media
Mm-hmm.
manager.
Yeah.
So let's take it from selfishly from my point of view. So I quit basically all social media if we don't count WhatsApp. Maybe I quit that as well, actually. I can't remember. I kind of quit a few years ago when I lived in Prague. I basically quit everything. So like I left Facebook,
Okay.
Instagram, Twitter, all of that.
Uh-huh.
And I decided I'm going to purify my life. I'm not going to have any of this. And then
Yeah.
I started
Yeah.
making my
Yeah.
own music. And then someone in another band gave me advice and said, you really need to get back on all these platforms because they're if you don't use them, then you're basically just like cutting off the potential to reach
Yeah,
other
yeah,
people.
yeah. It's so important. It's so important. I just can't imagine any indie artist trying to do
Yeah.
his thing without any social media.
So I came back
Facebook
to
is still important. Facebook and
yeah.
Instagram is the bare minimum.
So let's say if we take those like Facebook and Instagram, and obviously like those are both meta platforms, I imagine that there's certain ways that they work that's different. But like if you're going to give advice to anyone that's trying to promote something on these platforms, are there any kind of like general tips? Because I understand that there are all kinds of algorithms working away behind the scenes. And,
Yeah.
I'll see this where it's like, you feel like you post something and then you wonder how many people actually see this. It's like, I have these followers, but do they really see what
Yes.
I post? And equally,
Yes.
like sometimes I will go to the page of someone that I follow and I'll be like, oh, there are all these posts. I don't remember seeing these posts. So what do you know about how that works and how you can best manage that without having to
I
pay for it?
That's actually the point because no, I don't know much about it, but what I know is that I have more and more artists that tell me, oh yeah, we're gonna post this and do some and sponsor it, So now, no, yeah, you just have to pay for it. On my side, I always I've been, whether it be for Vous Connaissez or for my previous band Brusque, I never ever paid for anything on socials. I never paid for followers. I've always been convinced that you can grow a community and a fan base the most naturally possible by releasing music, by doing some shows. And sure, it takes time. Yeah, you won't have 1,000 followers in 2 weeks. No, no, no. It takes like 5, 6 years, something like this. And I've always assumed that. And yes, it takes time, but there's no there's no lie on it. Like yeah, your fan base is representative of the amount of people that follow you on your social media, and I'll always be a defender of this. Now, for the content wise, I'll never be the one that tells his artist, oh, you have to post a cover on that day, you have to post something, etc., etc. You have to go on TikTok. No, I'll never be that person. They can do it if they want, but where I'm really careful is to make sure that their posts are just well written and that it's professional, that it's just graphically it's cool, because it's a showcase. It's a showcase for artists. It's like you have your shop and you just show what you have to sell, but what you have to sell is your songs and your music videos, etc. So everything must be at the right place and beautiful to see with the eyes. So I always make sure that everything is super cool with that.
Now, having talked about the digital side of things, both in terms of social media and streaming services, obviously I've got some vinyl on the wall there. You've got some vinyl behind you.
Yep.
Both from a personal and a professional point of view, how important is physical media?
It's still really helpful. I was talking about the media that I've been able to loyalize. It's one part of it is because I send them some CDs, so that's cool. They really love to have a little CD to have with the review, and they're happy to talk about it. When I work with Pelagic, I've also been able, for the biggest one, to send them some vinyl. So that's really cool. And yeah, I think that's pretty much equal, because I also have some artists that just will release some projects digitally, but we have more or less the same results. So it's still something very much random.
Yeah.
But I tend to think that the most real physical it gets with the release, the better it is. But with COVID, etc., we've seen so many indie bands just releasing digitally and not having a CD. But I would always advise to get some physical release.
Yeah. There's just always the experience that I'm sure everybody who has put physical music out themselves knows, if you end up inevitably with certain boxes underneath your bed.
Yes, yeah, but that's it. But on another side, there's always that feeling of pride that you have your own music in your hands.
Definitely. Yeah, for sure. Just going back to well, in fact, the example with Dirty Shades, and when I spoke to Anouk,
Anouk, yes,
Anouk.
the singer
And
in
by
the
the way, I
dress. Yeah,
didn't say before, I love that album so much. Like, that was one of my
yeah,
absolute favorite
that was
albums of
amazing.
the year. Amazing album.
Oh, very cool. Really, really happy. you liked it?
I had in my conversation with her, and I think I have spoken to other people about this. One of the interesting things for me on the practical side was this knowledge that there are certain kind of there's a certain system in France, and I guess it's the same in, or maybe not the same, but comparable in other European countries, where there's certain kind of state support, like as an artist. So, like if you're playing shows, or even I think perhaps if you have
Yes.
rehearsals, there can be financial
Mm-hmm. Yep.
remuneration for that. So, like, what can you tell me from your side that you know about that, maybe just specifically in France?
So that status, I don't know how to say it in English, but in France it's called the status of intermittence, which basically, yes, you if you have some rehearsals or some concerts, you get paid for it. But let's imagine there's a period where you have no shows, no rehearsals, nothing in living spectacle. You can also have some financial help from the state, so you're stable financially. It's really something that I know from afar, but it exists, and some of my artists they live from that. They not only do music with their bands. Sometimes they can be some roadies for some shows or festivals. So it also gets it's included in this.
Yeah,
And but it's still a precarious status, I think.
yeah, yeah. It's not the kind of thing that you can rely on for a stable income.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, thinking about the fact that you are coming up to this 5 year point
Hmm.
with I never quite should know what to show what to call it, a firm, organization, company.
Um, I like to call it a micro agency.
Ah,
Agency.
micro
Yeah.
agency. Okay.
Yeah.
So, as you are coming up to this 5 year point, is there anything in particular that you want to promote, talk about, mention?
What I know for sure is that just as long as it's working, I don't want it to end for sure. I really would love to work with some more extreme music album. I've never worked on a death metal album. I'd love to, definitely. And some chaotic hardcore and everything. I had some amazing experiences working with Pelagic on some bands like Glassing, for example, or Nona, Hippotractor, etc. I kind of miss working with some projects like this, even though I work with some metal projects like the fact of working with King Yosef, for example, it just makes me think. I don't work that much with some pure hardcore band, and I really would like to work on some project, just violent music. Yeah, I want to work on some really violent music because don't get me wrong, I absolutely love every project I've been working on, but there is always a bit of accessibility on this one, and I like to push a little bit more the niche to it.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely able to recognize where an artist has just the level, has the potential, and obviously I love indie, I love shoegaze, ambient music, electronic, and I'm really happy to be able to work on some project like this. But with metal and hardcore, it's different. It's so much different. It's another level because it's another mentality in on some media. There's something that is more uninhibited.
Yeah, that's a good point. That does make a lot of sense.
So, for example, for some really violent and chaotic music I've been working on, whether it be King Yosef or Nona or Glassing or Hippotractor, for example, I use a word that you can translate in English by smackdown, and in French it's called branler, like c'est la branlée, which means it's really you just get punched in the face when you listen to the album, and you get hurt. So I really have an uninhibited way to write the emails, as you already know, of course. And being able to place a word like this in something that has to be a bit professional, this is something I really want to keep every time, because this is the way I write. This is my style, and I just can't defend the bands I work on differently than with my own words. So that makes sense to me, you know.
Yeah. Well, now that we've started talking about extreme music that makes you feel like you're punched in the face, after this conversation, I was planning anyway to go for a run, but I will definitely do that listening to the most aggressive playlist that I have to listen to.
Yeah.
So, Clément, thank you very much once again. It was great
Thank you, Tom.
to get
That
to
was
talk to you in
amazing.
real time. And yeah, I'm sure we will be communicating with each other again very soon.
Of course, it will happen when I get back from my time off. Of course.
Nice. Until then, all the best.
Thank you so much, Tom. Have a great day. That was amazing talking with you.
You too.
I can see colors among the mourners. Dye your hair, so I can see colors among the mourners.